this fall on PBS.
Capitalism is defined as an economic system characterized by private or corporate ownership of capital goods, by investments that are determined by private decisions, and prices, production, and the distribution of goods that are determined mainly by competition of the free market. Adam Smith is often referred to as the father of capitalism. He describes a system in which an invisible hand would maintain the market without government intervention. The government exists merely to protect individual rights, according to Smith.
I saw below me that golden valley. This land was made.
In the 1930s, American capitalism practically stopped working. For more than a decade, from 1929 to 1940, America's free market economy failed to operate at a level that allowed most Americans to attain economic success.
Ready, go.
Welcome to 10 Minutes. This is Dave Skylark. Today we're going to be seeing how some people from the 1940s and the Great Depression were affected by capitalism in their day-to-day life. Thank you.
We interviewed a local farmer, so let's see what he has to say about his experience.
Hey farmer, how's it going?
I'm good, how are you?
Not too shabby. So I just had a couple questions to ask you. How did capitalism affect you and your family?
Well, it seems to me like the rich is getting richer and the poor is getting poorer. I'm just trying to feed my family. Everyone, our friends went out west to find work, but we're still here right now just trying to get by. We've been eating fried dough the last 2 weeks, and I don't know, we're just trying to get by and we'll make it.
Nice, well I hope you do. So what did you think about the bank situation?
Well, them banks is monsters. They're trying to make money at our expense. They don't care what happened to us. And there's only a few of them and it's affecting a heck of a lot more.
What crops have you been growing?
We tried cotton, but as you can see, everything's dead. The Dust Bowl came in about a few months ago, ruined everything. The ground still isn't ready for harvesting anything yet, and we're just trying to get by. We'll make it.
How did capitalism affect the small town you lived in?
Well, from what I've heard, people been stealing, people been thieving. People gotta steal to survive. I've seen some pretty ugly things that you wouldn't want to see. I've seen young kids starving, and people killing for food. People I know killing for food. People I'm friends with killing for food. It's turned ugly, and I think it's capitalism's fault. To me and other families that 40% of our income has decreased, and 3/5 of the wealth in the world is owned by 2% of the population. Those are the banks, those are the big business people making money at our own expense. Don't ask me how I know that. I'm not good at mathematics and stuff. All those calculations just ain't my thing.
How has capitalism affected your social structure?
So out here in Oklahoma, we're all the same, but from what I understand in California, it goes Okies, small farmers, who are all part of the association, so they have to listen to the big farmers, and then the businessman who finance those farms.
The Great Depression taught people of all social classes the value of economic security and the need to endure and survive hard times rather than to risk with one's life or money. Americans rediscovered the virtues of democracy and the essential decency of the ordinary citizen, the near mythical common man, who was celebrated in Roosevelt's speeches, Frank Capra's movies, and Norman Rockwell's paintings. Thus, a decade marked by fundamental, even radical social changes ended for most with a reaffirmation of Americans' cultural past and its traditional political ideals. We interviewed a wealthy landowner, so let's see what his take on capitalism is.
You know I got it. If you wanna come get it, stand next to this money like, hey. Get money, nigga, like somebody about to pay you. Don't worry about the meters. You know something that
Welcome to Skylark Tonight. Here we are interviewing
Chad Longbottom. I'm a landowner and I own 50,000 acres in Central California.
Why did you choose to go out to California?
Well, can I be honest with you, Dave?
Yeah.
In our capitalistic society, I knew I could get richer, and I really want to get richer. I knew with the fertile land, I could make money off the land with the cheap labor. There's opportunities that nobody was taking advantage of with lots of land out there for cheap that could become expensive land. Oklahoma, it's getting old with the Dust Bowl. I just knew it was coming, something inside me.
What did you think of capitalism as a whole?
I think it's completely fair that the rich can get richer and the poor will get poorer. Life is a game and money is how you keep score, plain and simple.
Nice. So how has capitalism affected you specifically?
Well, America's free market economy has failed to operate at a level that allows most Americans to attain economic success. American capitalism is that there was too much of everything. There was too much supply and not enough demand. Too much cotton, wheat, beef, you name it. There was not enough buyers to make the crops worth harvesting, so the farmers were going to make no money, and even the landowners. And there was too many workers and not enough employers. Speaking for America as a whole, housing prices have plummeted by more than 30%. Global trade collapsed by 60%, and prices fell by 10%. It's going to take a long time for the stock market to recover from such a abyss. 3/5 of the nation's wealth is owned by 2% of the population. I'm glad I'm some of that 2%, but it totally diminishes the social mobility that America has built a foundation upon. I mean, I feel bad that people less fortunate than me can't work to earn money right now because the depression has affected everything.
How has capitalism affected the country politically?
Well, the depression affected politics by badly shaking confidence in unfettered capitalism. As a result, people voted for Franklin Roosevelt. He promised that government would spend enough to end the Great Depression. Since no one wants to make that mistake again, politicians have become too reliant on deficit spending, tax cuts, and forms of expansionary fiscal policy. That's created a dangerously high U.S. debt.
How do you feel about the poor laboring class, the opposite of the one you classify as?
Well, Dave, I obviously feel bad for the laborers as they have to make sacrifices I could never imagine making. I am not some heartless corpse that only cares about how wealthy I am. I do believe it is fair for me to capitalize on opportunities that will improve my economic situation. To be honest, the depression has affected me as a landowner, for my farmers are able to produce an ideal amount of crops, but there are not enough buyers to make a profit. I guess my point is that I am suffering as well, not even close to the level of these laboring families though. So I do not appreciate the judging of my character when they have never met me. I have donated a large amount of money to the families that work for me so they can live comfortably, but there's not only so much money to go around, as this capitalistic society forces me to make sure that I do not end up in the same situation as these so-called Okies. So to answer your question, Dave, I do feel for these families, and capitalism is to blame for such chaos, but I must do what I have to maintain my economic situation.
Thank you, Chad, for showing us your views on capitalism. Now that we have seen different perspectives on different people in different classes, we can conclude that capitalism has its flaws and advantages, but for most of the country during the Depression, capitalism was a monster that could not be stopped. Thank you. Signing off on Skylark Tonight.
Only on PBS.